Once upon a time, there was a little girl who was so sweet and kind that everybody loved her. Her mother, who loved her more than anyone, gave her a little scarf made of velvet, red velvet, which suited her so well, she wanted to wear it all the time. And because of that, everybody took to calling her Little Red Riding Scarf. And one day, her mother said to her, "Little Red Riding Scarf, I've got a job for you. Your grandmother isn't very well and I want you to take her some cake and a nice bottle of wine. They'll make her feel an awful lot better. But you be polite when you go into her house and give her a kiss from me. Now, be careful on the way there and don't step off the path, or you might trip over and break the bottle and drop the cake. And then there'll be nothing for Granny. And when you go into her parlour, don't forget to say, 'Good morning, Granny.' And don't go peering in all the corners." And Little Red Riding Scarf said she would do everything right, and she kissed her mother goodbye. Now, her grandmother lived in the woods, about half an hour's walk away. And when Little Red Riding Scarf had been walking a few minutes, a wolf came upon her. She didn't know what a wicked animal he was, and so she wasn't afraid of him. The wolf said good morning to her.
"Good morning, Little Red Riding Scarf.
Good morning, Wolf.
Where are you off to today then?"
I'm off to Granny's house.
"Oh, what have you got there?"
Well, she isn't feeling very well, so I brought her some wine and some cake to make her feel better.
"Oh, that's very nice. Now tell me, where does your granny live?"
Well, follow this road until you come across two big oak trees, and her house is behind us. It's only about 15 minutes.
"Oh, lovely."
But the wolf thought, "Now this dainty young thing looks like a tasty mouthful. She'll taste even better than the old woman, but if I'm careful, I'm going to be able to eat them both." So he walked along a while with Little Red Riding Scarf, and then he said, "Look at all those lovely flowers.
"Look at all these lovely flowers, Little Red Riding Scarf.
Aren't they lovely? Why
Beautiful, aren't they?
Why don't you go closer and have a little look at them?"
I want to go a bit closer and have a good look at the flowers.
Little Red Riding Hood was looking so serious, walking to school, all determined. She'd never hear the birds and the trees, and it's so lovely in the woods. And Little Red Riding Hood looked where he was pointing. And when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there between the trees, and how beautiful the flowers grew everywhere, she said,
I can pick some flowers for Granny. So love that, and I can still be back home in time.
and so she stepped off the path. And she ran into the trees to pick up some flowers. But each time she picked one, she saw an even prettier one, a bit further away. And so she ran to get that as well. And all the time, she went further and further and further into the woods. And while she was doing that, the wolf ran straight to Granny's house and knocked on the door.
Knock, knock, knock.
"Who's there?" said Granny.
It's Little Red Riding Scarf, Granny.
He had some cake and some wine for Granny.
I've got some cake and some wine for you, Granny.
"Open the door," he said.
Open the door, Granny.
But Granny was feeling very weak. She couldn't get out of bed. So the wolf just lifted the latch for himself and the door opened. He went inside and he looked around to see where he was, and then he leapt onto Granny's bed, ate her all up in one big gulp.
Oh, lovely Granny. Oh, picture, but very nice.
And then he put on her clothes, put her nightcap on his head, pulled the curtains tight shut, and got into bed. All that time, Little Red Riding Scarf had been wandering around picking up flowers. And once she gathered so many that she couldn't hold any more, she remembered what she was supposed to be doing, and she set off along the path to Granny's house. And she had a surprise when she got there, because the door was open and the room was very dark. My goodness, she thought. She didn't like this. She normally felt so comfortable at Granny's house. She called out again, but there was no answer. So she went to the bed and she pulled open the curtains. And there was Granny, lying with her cap pulled down and looking very strange. She said,
Oh, you're going to touch you in, my dear. Oh, better to see you with, my dear. Oh, the better to eat you with, my dear.
and as soon as the wolf said that, he leapt out of bed and gobbled up Little Red Riding Scarf. And once he'd swallowed her, he felt so full and satisfied. And since the bed was nice and soft, he climbed back in and fell deeply asleep. And he began to snore very loudly. Just then, just then, just then, just then, just then, oh, come on. All right. Just then, a huntsman was passing by. He said,
This woman's making such a noise.
he thought to himself,
I better go and see if she's okay.
and so he went into the parlour. And when he came near the bed, he stopped in astonishment.
You sinner. I've been looking for you a long time. Found you at last.
And he raised his rifle to his shoulder. But then he put it down again because it occurred to him that the wolf might have eaten the old lady and he might be able to rescue her. And so he put the rifle down. And he took out a pair of scissors. And he began to snip open the wolf's bulging belly. And after only a couple of snips, he saw the red velvet scarf. And a few snips later, a girl jumped out. She said,
It was so dark in that wolf's belly.
and so the hunter helped Little Red Riding Scarf to a chair. And then he had an idea. So he went to fetch some really heavy stones. And do you know what he did? He filled the wolf's belly with the stones. And then he sewed her up very, very neatly. And when he'd done that, he woke Granny up. And the wolf, seeing the hunter there with his gun, the wolf panicked and ran outside. But he didn't get very far because he was so weighed down by the stones. And soon he fell to the ground. The hunter and Little Red Riding Scarf were very happy. The hunter drank the wine, and Little Red Riding Scarf ate some of the cake. She had learnt, boys and girls, an important lesson. She said,
That was a narrow escape. Next time I'm going to do exactly as Mum says and stick to the path.
and they all lived happily ever after. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.